Hai Ukridian, saat ini saya sedang berada di Auditorium Kampus 1 Ukrida. Sesaat lagi kita akan menyaksikan acara Gathering Dosen Ukrida yang bertemakan tentang dosen sebagai pendidik. Selamat menyaksikan.
Benar ya, ada pembicaraan seperti itu. Kalau diharuskan, ada konsekuensinya tuh Bapak dan Ibu. Kalau sesuatu keputusan diharuskan, kalau nggak ada hukuman, itu gigi ompong kan, macan ompong maksudnya. Ya diharuskan, tetapi nggak ada yang datang, nggak ada apa-apain. Tapi saya senang katanya akhirnya keputusannya mengatakan tidak diharuskan, sukarela, tapi dihimbau dan diharapkan datang. Dan ternyata banyak yang datang. Nah ini gaya yang berbeda Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Dan ke depan anak-anak Gen Y, Gen Z yang akan menjadi karyawan kita di Ukrida, dan anak-anak didik kita yang nanti dari Gen Z nggak mau lagi digituin. Saya yakin itu. Mereka ingin di-treat sebagai manusia, bukan sebagai anjing sirkus. Jadi gimana caranya? Ini transformational management. Ini ada di Google semua Bapak dan Ibu. Mau dilihat. Transformational adalah kepemimpinan yang menggiring SDM yang dipimpin ke arah tumbuhnya pembinaan, pengembangan organisasi, pengembangan visi bersama, pendistribusian kewenangan, membangun kultur organisasi yang berguna untuk mencapai tujuan organisasi. Jadi di perusahaan saya, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, saya lagi berusaha untuk merubah gaya kepemimpinan. Kalau saya bicara gaya kepemimpinan, ini semua orang yang terlibat sebagai orang yang mempunyai anak buah ya. Semua orang, saudara-saudara yang punya anak buah itu orang pemimpin. Bagaimana merubah mindset? Sebab mau memberikan reward and punishment itu paling gampang. Ada garis sebelah kiri dihukum, garis sebelah kanan dikasih reward. Sederhana saudara-saudara. Seorang manajer yang nggak usah berpikir seperti itu. Nggak usah ada pembinaan, nggak usah ada persamaan visi. Paksa aja. Saya mengatakan, this is not the way you manage the future organization. Organisasi masa depan di mana anak-anak kita itu sudah sangat terbuka dan mempunyai wawasan yang jauh lebih luas daripada kita-kita ini yang baby boomers. Nggak mau lagi di-manage seperti itu. Mereka ingin dikasih ngerti. Mereka ingin diberikan pemahaman. Kalau saya nggak bisa, diberikan mentoring. Nah balik lagi nih Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Pertanyaannya, pemimpin seperti apa yang bisa memimpin orang seperti ini? Kalau saudara-saudara nggak kenal anak buah, bisa nggak? Kalau saudara-saudara mau ketemu anak buah aja takut, atau malah segan, ngomong aja sama anak buah nggak pernah, bisa nggak saudara-saudara tahu apa kekurangan dia untuk diberikan mentoring ataupun memberikan mereka memampukan mereka. And this is the issue Bapak dan Ibu. Isunya bukan cuma di Ukrida, di perusahaan-perusahaan dan di semua organisasi saya rasa mengalami hal yang sama. Kita di dalam suatu transisi di mana di satu pihak perkembangan teknologi yang begitu cepat, keterbukaan melalui internet dan social media dan sebagainya. Tetapi gaya kita memanajemeni perusahaan-perusahaan kita, gaya kita memanajemeni karyawan ada di perusahaan-perusahaan itu masih yang seperti kuno itu tahun sebelum baby boomers malah. Saya rasa ini nggak sesuai. Jadi kita harus berpikir bagaimana supaya orang-orang itu mempunyai kesadaran. Jadi balik lagi ke contoh ini, saudara. Kalau acara-acara seperti ini ingin dihadiri oleh banyak orang dengan sendirinya tanpa ada keharusan, tanpa ada hukuman, bagaimana mestinya acara ini dibuat? Tolong kasih informasi buat saya, kasih input. Kalau saudara-saudara mau datang ke acara seperti ini dengan keinginan sendiri, dengan spontan, dengan semangat, saya pengen datang nih ke acara gathering dosen Ukrida. Harus seperti apa acara ini? Saya pikir saudara-saudara harus menarik kan. Kalau saya taruh Ahok di sini hari ini, saudara-saudara lihat nih, ruangan pasti akan penuh. Setuju nggak? Artinya apa? Artinya Artinya penyelenggara, Pak Rektor, Bapak-bapak dan Ibu yang membantu Pak Rektor, mesti bikin acara ini menarik untuk kita semua mau hadir. Karena kalau dipaksa mereka di sini 3 jam lebih seharian ada di sini, buang waktu Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ngapain? Pulang terus nggak ada apa-apa yang di kepala mereka kosong, sama aja seperti nggak ada. Dipaksa pun apa gunanya? Kita harus membuat acara-acara seperti ini begitu menarik, begitu interaktif, mungkin interaktif yang lebih ditonjolkan. Karena sekarang ini kayaknya one way. Membuat kita semua ini begitu antusiastik untuk datang karena kita mendapatkan sesuatu. Ini contoh Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Jadi kalau kita ingin membuat orang-orang itu mencapai kesadaran mereka sendiri untuk melakukan sesuatu, mereka harus mau untuk bekerja dan melakukan hal itu kan. You have to have that passion, kata orang. Nah kalau nggak ada passionnya, diapain? Digebuk. Apa passion bisa timbul? Mungkin Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, passion itu bisa waktu anak-anak kita kecil, kita gebuk dia suruh main piano misalnya. Sampai mereka itu mempunyai habit, kesukaan untuk main piano, gitu kan. Tapi kita menggebuk mereka itu untuk mendidik mereka, menyadarkan mereka, kan? Bukannya untuk memberikan reward and punishment. Jadi ini yang konsep ini saya rasa saudara-saudara harus kita terus pikirkan dan harus kita tumbuhkan. Ya, mungkin Bapak yang ngurus kultur Ukrida nih, kita harus mikirin nih Pak. Jangan garu-garu kepala Pak. Kita harus pikirkan gimana supaya kita mempunyai kesamaan visi, kita dekat dengan orang-orang yang menjadi anak buah kita. Dan saya rasa saudara-saudara kalau ditanya bagaimana Kristus mementori anak buahnya, itu seperti ini kan. Bukan dengan paksa, bukan dengan keharusan, bukan dengan reward and punishment, tetapi dengan relationship. Balik lagi saya ngomong relationship. Ya kan? Dengan relationship, dengan hubungan antar manusia. Kalau nggak ada relationship, saudara-saudara mau jadi pemimpin yang bisa mentor, bisa memberikan visi dan sebagainya, nggak mungkin. Jadi itu ya Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kalau saya bisa katakan challenge buat saya sebagai pebisnis, dan juga ini mungkin challenge kepada pimpinan-pimpinan yang ada di Krida. Nah ini ya detailnya lah ya, saya skip aja. Intinya Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, semua yang kita lakukan, baik itu sebagai suatu bisnis atau itu sebagai satu lembaga pendidikan seperti Ukrida. Tadi kan kita bicara hari ini fokus gitu ya. Tanpa fokus susah rasanya gitu. Tanpa kesungguhan untuk mempelajari dan mendalami bidang yang kita tekuni ini, apakah itu bidang bisnis atau bidang pendidikan atau bidang kesehatan, kita nggak bisa menjadi jago di situ. Dan saudara tahu ada berapa merek handphone di dunia ini? Saya bisa bilang kira-kira ada 200 merek. Saudara tahu dari 200 merek itu ada satu merek namanya Apple, menguasai kira-kira 20% pangsa pasar seluruh mobile phone seluruh dunia. Jadi 200 merek, satu merek menguasai 20%, malah kurang dari 20, 18-an. Yang 199 itu menguasai 80%. Pareto Slope 2018. Saudara tahu 90% dari keuntungan yang didapat dari satu perusahaan yang namanya Apple ini, yang menguasai hanya 20%, itu 90% dari keuntungan yang bisa didapat, yang didapat dari menjual handphone. Selebihnya 199 perusahaan itu untungnya hanya 20%. Bagilah 20% keuntungannya itu bagi 199 perusahaan. Satu yang namanya Apple untungnya 80% dari itu. Malah kalau statistik yang saya baca belakangan ini 90% ada. Jadi Apple menguasai pasar 20%, tetapi menguasai keuntungan 90% dari seluruh profit yang dihasilkan. Kenapa saudara? Kenapa orang beli iPhone yang harganya itu 14 juta? Modal bikinnya sama seperti saudara-saudara yang pakai Oppo yang harganya 5 juta. Ngerti maksud saya ya? Harga bikinnya kan sama, alatnya, screen-nya sama, barang. Harganya bikinnya itu kira-kira $100, $150 paling mahal. Jadi kalau bikinnya itu harganya 2 juta, dijualnya 14 juta, cuma Apple yang bisa. Yang lain tuh jualnya cuma 5 juta, 6 juta. Wah, kenapa? Nah, saudara-saudara boleh percaya, orang yang beli Apple itu not buying a product. What are they buying? They're not buying a brand. They buy what you believe. Ini kalau saudara-saudara baca, ada satu, suka ngedenger TED-nya? TED. TED itu sebuah forum, saudara-saudara, di mana saudara-saudara kalau lihat di YouTube itu ngomong cerita macam-macam deh. TED Forum namanya, TED, bisa baca. Nah, ada salah satu pembicara yang mengatakan kenapa Apple itu begitu sukses. Sehingga Apple ini sekarang saudara-saudara adalah perusahaan termahal di dunia ya. Jadi market kapitalisasi artinya jumlah saham dikalikan dengan harga sahamnya Apple itu paling besar di dunia, 400 miliar dolar Amerika. Lebih besar dari Exxon yang kerjanya itu oil mining, lebih besar dari Shell dan sebagainya. Apple adalah perusahaan terbesar, termahal ya, bukan terbesar, termahal di dunia. Because people buy what they believe. People buy what they believe, not the product. Jadi artinya begini, kata orang ini, saudara bisa setuju atau enggak? Orang itu membeli Apple itu karena percaya kepada visi Apple, karena percaya kepada apa yang Apple represent. Represent apa sih Apple? Ease of use, technology. Gitu saudara-saudara, percaya nggak? Bener nggak gitu? Orang membeli bukan karena produknya sama kok. Apa yang dibikin oleh Samsung, Oppo, apalagi lah 200 merek itu, sama yang Apple bikin sama nggak? Sama kan? Tapi they believe what Apple is doing. Sehingga 14 juta juga rela. Nah, pemikiran ini yang harus menggelitik kita. Kalau kita mengatakan bahwa Ukrida adalah sebuah universitas yang ingin mendidik orang menjadi profesional mandiri yang bernilai Kristiani, percaya nggak orang pada itu, saudara-saudara? Gimana mereka percaya kalau misalnya dosen-dosennya saling gontok-gontokan? Gimana mereka bisa percaya orang luar nih yang kita mau jualan bisa percaya kalau anak-anaknya semua berantem atau narkoba dan sebagainya? Kan nggak mungkin. It's not, you don't walk the talk. Apa yang kalian katakan beda dengan yang kalian lakukan. Kenapa sih si Ahok begitu didukungnya oleh anak-anak muda ini? Karena Ahok begitu hebatnya, gagah, ganteng dan sebagainya. Kenapa? Kenapa anak-anak muda ini mendukung Ahok tanpa dibayar? Tanpa dipaksa? Because they believe. Karena percaya kan sama si Ahok mereka. Percaya bahwa dia adalah simbol yang bisa menghantam korupsi. Simbol yang bisa memberikan kesejahteraan kepada rakyat. Bukankah itu, saudara-saudara? Bukan Ahok yang, tapi kepercayaan kepada seorang diri Ahok. Ini marketing of the 20th century, the 22nd century, saudara-saudara. Gimana kita memarket Ukrida sampai orang percaya? Dan kalau orang mau percaya, kita harus merefleksikan itu kan. Gimana sih kalau misalnya dosen-dosen masih harus dipaksa kalau misalnya datang ke acara gathering dosen Ukrida, kalau nggak dihukum gitu. Itu mencerminkan kan suatu kebanggaan kita kepada organisasi kita. It doesn't reflect. It doesn't show. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, ini contoh-contoh kita sangat kasat mata gitu, ada di depan kita sekarang. Dan saya bingung saudara-saudara, begitu banyak yang sekarang ini berusaha untuk mendongkel si Ahok, kecil-kecil apapun juga dibongkar. Tapi sebanyak itu orang yang mendongkar, sebanyak 10 kali lipat orang yang mendukung dia. Bingung gitu. Because they believe. Jadi ini marketing, saudara-saudara. Ahok is a brand kalau buat saya. Brandnya Ahok. Percaya nggak nih sama brand yang namanya Ahok? Orang-orang ternyata percaya, dan anak-anak muda itu yang percaya sekali. Oke, lanjut Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Profit is important. Jadi saudara-saudara, sekali lagi saya katakan, Ukrida tanpa surplus kita akan bangkrut. Perusahaan bentaran lagi juga tutup kalau dia nggak profit. Tapi profit ini kalau menurut saya is a byproduct. Byproduct itu apa sih? Kalau saudara-saudara habis makan, byproductnya apa ya? Ke WC kita kan. Itu byproduct. It's a result of what you done. So, kalau menurut saya, profit is only a byproduct. Jadi saudara-saudara, kalau misalnya ada orang yang ingin bikin suatu perusahaan, dan tujuan dia adalah bikin profit dulu, pasti nggak lama tuh umurnya. Karena begitu profitnya kurang atau nggak ada, hilang deh. Profit is a byproduct of doing the right thing. Lakukanlah apa-apa. Dan saya punya, ini mungkin saudara-saudara juga ada pernah lihat, apa sih right things-nya itu di dalam satu organisasi. Kalau kita ingin melakukan hal-hal yang benar, saya punya ini saudara-saudara. Ini saudara-saudara udah dengar, ada yang sudah. Dan saya rasa masih valid. Saya pernah ngomong ini tahun 97. Tapi saya pikirkan, setiap organisasi, setiap individu juga harus mempunyai ke-6 item ini. Jadi pertama itu, kalau tanpa visi, kita mau lari kemana? Mau jalan kemana? Ukrida tanpa visi tidak bisa bertumbuh kemana-mana. Visi kita jelas, menciptakan profesional mandiri yang bernilai Kristiani. Kalau kita tidak merefleksikan itu sebagai lembaga, kalau bapak-bapak nih sebagai pendidik, sebagai dosen tidak merefleksikan itu di dalam keseharian kita berhubungan, di dalam relationship kita, saya rasa kita nggak bisa seperti Apple atau seperti Ahok. Kita cuma bisa ngomongnya aja. Tanpa organisasi, punya visi, mengorganisasikan diri kita dengan baik. Terus berinovasi. Tanpa inovasi mati. Kurikulum apa yang baik untuk kita lakukan? Gimana? Dan itu harus berubah terus. Intel nih saudara-saudara ya, pernah punya seorang CEO namanya Andy Grove. Andy Grove bilang, only the paranoid survive. Apa artinya itu saudara? Kalau saudara-saudara paranoid baru bisa hidup katanya. Tapi itu ekstrim lah kalau menurut saya. Intinya tanpa inovasi, saudara-saudara takut kan kalau inovasi. Kita berinovasi itu akan timbul pada saat saudara-saudara dalam krisis. Timbul itu keinginan-keinginan dan terobosan-terobosan. Jadi mungkin ada benarnya. Kalau saudara di dalam satu kondisi di mana diharuskan, baru keluarlah inovasi itu. Tanpa inovasi kita akan, tanpa cooperation saudara. Kerjasama dengan baik dengan kita, sesama dosen, dosen dengan atasan, dengan rektorat, dengan orang tua murid. Dengan murid kerjasama itu tidak ada. Apalagi saya bisnisnya pasti membutuhkan cooperation. Cooperation itu harus ada networking, harus ada relationship. Tanpa itu nggak ada cooperation. Dan lakukanlah semuanya itu dengan semangat I'm doing my best. Sebenarnya di Alkitab juga ada tuh, di Kolose 3 ayat 23 ya Pak. Lakukanlah ini semua seolah-olah bukan untuk manusia tapi untuk Tuhan. That's excellence kalau buat saya. Dan Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kalau udah lakukan itu, biarkanlah Tuhan bekerja. Kalau orang Chinese percaya kepada hoki, kepada luck, kalau dia lagi kerja, kita nggak percaya pada itu. Kita percaya kepada tuntunan Tuhan. Jadi lakukanlah yang terbaik, lakukanlah dengan baik. Setelah itu Tuhan bekerja. Nah, saya rasa Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kita semua ingin organisasi kita ini berhasil. Kita semua ingin membuat surplus, membuat profit. Tapi sekali lagi, ini by Henry Ford ngomong. Dia bilang, profit is a byproduct lagi of work. Happiness is the chief product. Jadi kalau tadi profitnya itu byproduct, produknya itu apa sih? Produknya itu mesti happiness, saudara-saudara. Happiness kepada saudara yang mengerjakan, happiness kepada orang yang menerima. Kalau orang happy pakai produk Apple, besok dia bilang sama anaknya, lu beli Apple aja, jangan beli Oppo. Kalau customer kita happy, mahasiswa itu bilang sama anaknya, sama saudaranya, sama temennya, lu masuk ke Ukrida aja. Kalau saudara-saudara melakukannya itu dengan tidak dengan sukacita, dengan passion, dengan kegembiraan, tapi karena dipaksa, karena ada yang taruh pistol di kepala saudara-saudara, pasti ini nggak akan jalan. Jadi saudara-saudara, do the best work, profit pasti datang kalau saya bilang. Tetapi do it sebagai jalan untuk mencapai happiness. Happiness kepada semua orang yang kita, kepada semua stakeholder kita yang kita layani. Saya kira itu ya. Let's meet the challenge.
Terima kasih. Baik, Bapak Ibu, untuk sesi ini sepertinya kita akan buka sesi tanya jawab. Mungkin ada Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya langsung kepada Bapak Oki. Ya boleh.
Saya hanya perwakilan. Mungkin saya mau bertanya kepada, mungkin bisa dijawab oleh baik Pak Oki maupun Pak Aris. Tadi sesinya Pak Oki membahas tentang teknologi as a challenge. Memang era sekarang ini zamannya, kalau kita lihat dari history, banyak terjadi perubahan zaman. Dari Dark Age, Renaissance, sampai science sangat diunggulkan, kemudian ke humanitarianism-nya itu sendiri, dan sekarang teknologi. Perubahan zaman itu selalu akan ada. Konteksnya yang akan berbeda-beda sesuai dengan yang akan menjawab kebutuhan pada zaman itu. Zaman sekarang, kenapa itu teknologi menjadi zaman? Karena memang dari sisi perkembangan ilmu dan segala macam, seolah-olah menjadi teknologi ini sebagai sumber jawaban. Terkait dengan gathering kita dosen sebagai pendidik, yang menarik justru bagi saya adalah filosofi pendidikan itu sendiri. Karena saya selalu bertanya-tanya, sebenarnya ini pertanyaan sih terutama untuk Pak Aris. Jadi filosofi sebagai pendidik itu tuh yang seperti apa sih Pak? Kita itu sebagai pendidik itu, kalau filosofi itu kan sepertinya akan ada wisdom yang konstan yang bisa diterapkan di berbagai zaman. Dan karena kita hidup di zaman yang era teknologi ini, teknologi itu sebagai toolsnya yang membantu kita. Tadi yang saya tangkap dari sesinya Pak Oki adalah manfaatkanlah teknologi dalam proses pendidikan itu sendiri. Yang menarik bagi saya adalah yang saya mau tanyakan adalah bagaimana kita memaknai filosofi pendidikan pada zaman ini, konteks teknologi. Karena kan kita nggak tahu ya konteks teknologi ini zamannya dari 2000 sampai 100 abad lagi, 1 abad lagi, atau sampai kapan. Yang saya selalu cari adalah wisdom dari sebagai pendidik itu. Wisdom pendidikan itu apa? mendidik itu apa sih sebenarnya inti mendidik di dalam konteks yang sekarang ini zaman teknologi. Kalau dari saya sih mungkin itu pertanyaan saya harap bapak-bapak nangkep apa ya pertanyaan saya juga bingung. Oke, intinya begini nih, kalau nggak punya filsuf kayak gini, filosofinya masih dicari pak. Oh ya, ini pertanyaan titipan. Bagaimana sebenarnya karena kalau kami memandang sih teknologi as a tools karena pada zaman ini, dan bagaimana kita sebenarnya sebagai pendidik bukan hanya memanfaatkan teknologi, tapi bagaimana kita membantu anak-anak terutama yang generasi saya dan generasi Z itu menyikapi teknologi as a tools, not as a mean atau filosofi pendidikan itu sendiri. Itu sih dari saya. Silakan.
Is that okay, sir? Okay. In accordance with our topic today that we are learning to focus, I have written down my question actually so that it will save time. It's part of the practice. Okay, regarding Pak Oki's statement that education institution or university is like business institution or company. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, sir. So based on that statement, my tentative conclusion as a member of UKRIDA must generate revenues or make profits. My question is that how the UKRIDA board member perceive UKRIDA, and is that where we are oriented to do? I'm asking this question because I've been thinking about the newspaper article that was sent by Prof. Erling several weeks ago, which is from Kompas. The article is actually quite interesting because some of the statements suggest that the authority of the university nowadays has become disoriented, which is moving from the non-profit or social institution direction to the business or profit institution. So as a member of UKRIDA, I would like to know what is the stance of our board member in this case so that we can be on the same page. So just as a note, the article also mentioned that in many other developed countries, universities no longer operate solely dependent on sales revenue, but also other types of income, which is one of them that is mentioned is endowment fund. So I would like to hear, I think, more comments on this so that we can work together to build a better UKRIDA in the future. Thank you.
Yang tanya bingung, yang jawab juga bingung. Tapi paling tidak kan kita harus punya pertanyaan, karena berbicara itu kan sesuatu perenungan untuk melihat realitas secara keseluruhan ini, sehingga kita mendapatkan suatu jawaban apa sih? Kalau kita mau melihat pendidikan, ya keseluruhan pendidikan ini sebagai suatu aktivitas untuk manusia dan juga untuk bagaimana kebaikan. Sehingga banyak kan setiap ahli pendidikan kan mendefinisikan ini. Tapi paling tidak bahwa pendidikan itu suatu proses di mana seorang yang sedang belajar itu semakin mandiri dan mampu menghadapi realita secara stabil ya, atau paling tidak dia mampu untuk menjawab, dia mampu untuk mengatasi, dia mampu untuk hidup. Jadi ini, adanya teknologi kan tadi kan konteks kan dari Renaissance macam-macam, konteks memang berubah karena budaya juga berubah. Lalu juga kemajuan berpikir juga berubah, prinsip berpikir juga berubah. Tapi pendidikan proses untuk bisa hidup, untuk bisa mengatasi itu. Makanya tadi kan kita lihat terus bagaimana era-era ini. Jadi itu yang harus. Jadi kita sebagai pendidik harus mampu menjawab itu. Ya bukan mampu menghafalkan siapa yang bilang, tapi mampu menemukan saya ini siapa. Dosen itu instruktur, atau dosen itu seorang pendamping, atau dia itu adalah gudang ilmu yang tinggal buka pintu. Ini nanti harus dijawab semua. Dijawab ini itu akan mempengaruhi langkah-langkah yang kita lakukan. Ya, jadi ini juga tergantung, misalnya pendidikan itu mentraining orang ini, ya kita lihat training itu hanya berlaku untuk misi usaha-usaha itu. Jadi misalnya sekarang sedang zamannya Apple, di training pakai program Apple semua sehingga bisa. Ini kan kadang-kadang rancunya di Indonesia kan antara pendidikan dan training itu tidak dibedakan. Ya, lalu orang semua pada les untuk training, ya, karena menjawab perusahaan-perusahaan itu hanya satu aspek kecil ya, dari totalitas pendidikan menurut saya. Jadi kalau saya training leadership itu hanya menjawab karena sekarang ini sedang dibutuhkan. Tapi itu sendiri hanya aspek kecil, tidak totalitas apa yang dinamakan pendidikan. Dan universitas harus mempunyai pemikiran yang lebih luas daripada sekedar untuk training. Nah, dalam pendidikan juga, misalnya kalau kita bicara profit dan sebagainya, itu juga cara memandang, apakah kita memandang pendidikan industri jasa, ya, kan sudah dilihat Indonesia industri jasa, atau kita mau melihat bahwa pendidikan itu justru bagaimana mengumpulkan, mengakumulasi, memberdayakan modal sosial yang kita punya gitu ya. Kalau industri jasa seolah kita ini punya modal sekian, lalu wah ini jasanya diukur, kemudian bagaimana membuat jasa itu. Tapi kalau modal sosial itu sangat abstrak, tapi juga powernya besar. Apa yang katakan Pak Oki tadi, kita beli Apple itu kan karena belief. Setelah itu modal sosial. Ya artinya belief itu ternyata mahal harganya kan gitu. Nah siapapun yang bisa mengumpulkan modal sosial itu akan cepat. Contohnya aja kalau untuk teman-teman gereja seperti Betani, GBI dan sebagainya, begitu pandainya modal sosial di-create, ya, diberdayakan, wah tiba-tiba persembahan bisa mampu 10 miliar dalam 1 tahun. Nah dagang apa? Yang tanpa modal, ya, 10 miliar setahun, itu modal sosial. Nah justru di universitas itu banyak modal sosial. Jadi apa yang Anda punyai, apa yang saya punya yang beda, kalau itu disinergikan jadi modal yang kuat sekali. Itu yang tidak pernah dipikirkan oleh universitas saat ini. Jadi psikologi modal sosial seperti apa kalau itu dikombin dengan teknologi, dengan IT. Tapi kalau itu berdiri sendiri seolah-olah itu sesuatu yang nah ini nanti kalau itu terkait dengan pertanyaan Wira ya, jadi power itu jangan dikira bahwa uang saja, tetapi banyak hal yang ternyata in the long run itu sesuatu kekuatan besar. Ya, misalnya alumni itu modal sosial, kita tidak tahu berapa, tapi begitu alumni tergerak, gedung FK bisa jadi kan itu misalnya. Jadi kita tidak bisa modal ini untungnya tahun depan 10 miliar, 2 miliar, tidak bisa. Kalau sudah modal sosial itu unlimited. Jadi itu aja. Tapi Pak Oki yang di bidang bisnis, kalau saya merasa itu bidang sosial karena saya berada di gereja dan banyak gereja itu triliun kalau kita kumpulkan modal sosial. Hanya gereja sangat boros karena tidak memahami itu. Ya, jadi misalnya satu gereja aja saya bayangkan yang saya duduk per tahun itu persembahannya 2 juta. Saya katakan kalau itu 5 tahun saya bisa berbuat sesuatu yang hebat. Tapi gereja 10 tahun saya tunggu, kok adanya itu aja, sekolah minggu ya gitu, ini gitu. Padahal 5 tahun 10 miliar. Tetapi kenyataannya ya gitu-gitu aja. Organnya ya itu, pendetanya ya gitu. Jadi karena tidak sadar bahwa ada sesuatu yang besar yang tidak. Nah makanya sekarang orang-orang manajemen harus bangga. Ini era yang manajemen harus merambah ke realita. Terima kasih.
Saya mau nanya, kalau di dalam pemahaman kamu, filosofi pendidikan itu apa sih?
Kalau saya karena masih mencari tahu, filsafat adalah menjadi pendidik nih Pak. Pendidikan.
Filosofi pendidikan, filosofi seorang pendidik, gitu. Apa artinya sebuah lembaga pendidikan?
Kalau saya sih
Jadi sebenarnya Ukrida udah punya kan motor to transform somebody, gitu kan? To transform somebody so that they will be able to live in the future, gitu kan? Sederhananya kita mendidik orang tuh ngapain sih sebenarnya? Kita jangan, kalau saya bicaranya filosofi itu seolah-olah satu hal yang nebulus sih, satu hal yang di awal-awal. Kita bicara yang konkret aja deh. Ngapain ada sekolah, ada universitas, ada lembaga pendidikan? Untuk apa? Untuk apa kehadiran sebuah lembaga pendidikan di masyarakat? Jawab. Kamu nanya saya nanya ke kamu lagi.
Kalau bagi saya sih pendidikan itu ya tadi Pak, membantu yang kita didik ataupun siapapun peserta didik untuk menjadi the best version of their self.
Apa sih the best version of their self?
Apapun itu.
Apa itu?
Misalnya, ya kalau saya boleh sharing ya Pak, ini nanti jadi panjang. Saya baru saja baru dikatakan sukses mendampingi anak-anak sebenarnya menjuarai kompetisi debat.
Oh.
Hanya juara 3. Tapi sudah juara 3 itu setelah saya push mereka selama 4 tahun untuk percaya kemampuan mereka, percaya bahwa mereka tidak jauh tertinggal dari universitas lainnya, dan berani menerima tantangan. Karena kalau saya melihat kelemahan anak-anak Ukrida adalah itu.
Jadi, what does that mean? Kalau saya mau rangkumkan itu di dalam satu kata, saya Olivia ini ngapain sih kepada orang-orang itu? Diapain sih anak gue itu?
Difasilitasi.
Fasilitasi dong. Kalau fasilitasi kamu cuma jadi. Tapi ada lagi satu kata yang lebih tepat. You are enabling. Betul nggak? Kamu memberdayakan orang ini yang tadinya nggak punya kepercayaan pada dirinya sendiri, yang tadinya dia nggak bisa berdebat. You are enabling them. Kamu memberdayakan orang ini. Dan saya rasa itulah tujuan pendidikan. Tujuan pendidikan adalah memberdayakan orang yang tadinya kurang berdaya atau tidak berdaya menjadi lebih berdaya dan lebih mampu. Untuk apa? Untuk menghadapi masa depan mereka, untuk menghadapi kehidupan mereka. Bukan begitu. Kamu dididik supaya kamu bisa jadi orang pintar, jadi dosen di Ukrida, gitu kan? Jadi Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, setuju nggak kalau saya bilang bahwa tugas kita adalah apa? Memberdayakan orang yang kita didik. Jadi kalau misalnya tugas itu adalah memberdayakan, pakailah segala jenis, segala macam fasilitas yang bisa kita dapatkan. Nah, salah satunya itu teknologi. Dan teknologi ini jangan cuma dilihat sebagai tools, tadi saya bilang. If it is a tool, kalau tool saudara boleh ada, boleh enggak. Ya, karena ya kalau nggak ada internet pun saya bisa ngajar, kan bisa. Tetapi look at internet as the enabler, sebagai satu satu mekanisme untuk lebih memberdayakan lagi. Contohnya begini, tadi Pak Ari sudah bilang, kalau sekarang ini dosen itu tugasnya adalah memberi masukan kepada mahasiswa, gitu kan? Kedepan saya rasa ini dapat berubah. KBK contohnya, kurikulum berbasis kompetensi itu nggak one directional kan Pak ya? Nggak cuma saya ngajarin, dosen ngajarin, tidak. Dosen itu benar fasilitator jadinya. Dosen cuma bilang, ini begitu, nanti kamu cari sendiri ya di internet bahan-bahannya. Kamu kembali kepada saya apa yang kamu, sama seperti dokter, kamu langsung berhadapan dengan pasien atau berhadapan dengan manekin-manekin itu untuk mendapatkan pengertian yang sebenarnya. Jadi saya ngelihat perubahan dari pendidikan ini adalah dari sisi dengan adanya teknologi, dari sisi bagaimana kita bisa lebih menguasai suatu bidang, satu lebih cepat, dua lebih dalam. Karena apa? Karena dia bisa menggali sendiri informasi itu. Nah ini yang saya harapkan dari sisi pemberdayaan teknologi. Nah oleh karena itu teman-teman Pak Burhan sekarang coba pikirkan ya, orang-orang IT, bagaimana kita bisa memakai infrastruktur ini kita kembangkan. Perlu investasi, yes. Kenapa? Perlu investasi, yes, pasti. Tapi kalau kita tidak memakai ini, kita ketinggalan nggak? Saya khawatir kita ketinggalan. Nanti anak didik kita ketinggalan. Kalau kita nggak punya manekin, nggak punya itu apa sih? Bukan kadaver. Kadaver yang ada tuh 40 biji di 40 ya Pak ya kita lihat. Anak-anak bisa nggak belajar anatomi? Nggak bisa. Nggak ngerti dia mengenai anatomi kalau misalnya nggak ada. Jadi saya mengatakan bahwa kita perlu investasi di bidang teknologi supaya kita bisa lebih. Nah, mengenai apakah ini jadi sebuah lembaga pendidikan itu, saya tanya sekarang sama Ira. Is it bad to have an university that is seperti perusahaan?
Absolutely not bad. But my question is that because there's an objective behind it, we need to know exactly what is actually the board of Ukrida wants us to do in this case. Because here we are a group of teachers, lecturers, yeah? And we have our main objectives to do research, to teach, and to do a community outreach program. But at the same time, as a member of Ukrida, we also have to share responsibility so Ukrida can survive, right? So in this case, how the Board of Education, Board of Ukrida see the philosophy of education itself, so we can be on the same page. Because
there is no difference in my answer to Olivia, that our job is to transform, to enable anak didik kita supaya mereka menjadi orang-orang yang lebih mampu, itu kan? Dia apakah dia seorang dokter, seorang engineer, atau seorang ekonom, seorang psikolog, kita memampukan mereka. We are enabling them. That is our job. That is your job. Right? So I'm not sure what you mean by philosophy of education. What is the philosophy of education? It's a whole big subject as I understand. But I'm not going to go in there. So what I'm saying is, as a lecturer, what is your main task? Your main task is to enable your students so that they are ready, they are prepared, they are transformed. Right? Transformed to do what? To be able to work in the workforce, to be a member of the society. Nah, di sini ada yang kita instill juga, yang kita inginkan di Ukrida itu bukan cuma mendidik orang menjadi teknisi, bukan cuma mendidik orang menjadi seorang yang apa ya? Kalau dokter itu cuma dokter yang bisa ngobatin orang gitu. Tapi ada tambahannya nih, nilai-nilai Kristianinya. Nah, di mana kita masukin nilai-nilai Kristiani ini di dalam pendidikan kita? Apa sih nilai-nilai Kristiani? Kalau saya tanya nih sama dosen-dosen, mungkin Denny harus bikin satu sesi. Mungkin Eri mesti mencerminkan ini. Kita punya moto di Ukrida itu, punya visi di Ukrida itu mendidik orang menjadi profesional mandiri yang punya nilai-nilai Kristiani. Terjemahkanlah itu dulu. Mungkin mesti balik lagi ke Pak Aris punya jabaran tuh waktu awal-awal. Pelajari itu dulu, apa sih? Apa artinya menjadi seorang yang mempunyai keahlian dan juga mempunyai nilai-nilai Kristiani. Boleh saya jawab Pak? Ya, tunggu dulu Pak. Jadi saya sih cuma pikir itu dulu dijawab, kalau itu sudah terjawab. Nah, jawaban langsung mengenai apakah ini sebuah lembaga pendidikan atau sebuah bisnis. Saya melihatnya begini, mungkin pandangan kita mengenai sebuah lembaga bisnis itu yang salah. Kalau kita merasa bahwa lembaga pendidikan dan lembaga bisnis seolah-olah ini dua dikotomi, perusahaan sudah berubah. Perusahaan itu harus berperan sebagai engine of the society. Itu yang saya lihat. Jadi harus sebagai motor di dalam. Coba kalau nggak ada perusahaan, bagaimana kita bekerja, mendapatkan penghasilan, menyejahterakan keluarga kita? Kan nggak ada. Nah, ada perusahaan yang cuma mikirnya profit oriented. Nah ini yang harus dirubah. Ya itu dan itu sedang berubah. Sama di universitas juga saya rasa. Universitas itu harus menjadi sebuah lembaga yang profitable, tapi not profit oriented. Bisa nggak dimengerti? Profitable, but not profit oriented. Profitable itu artinya ada surplusnya, tetapi profit oriented itu cuma ngejar profit. Itu yang kita tidak mau. You understand the difference? If it is profitable, that means you are doing things right. You are doing the right things. You are profitable. There is a surplus. People enjoy, people like it. Apple itu bukan memikirkan bagaimana dia bisa profitable, no. Yang dipikirkan, how can people believe in my product? Itu yang aku pikir. Setelah orang percaya, baru dia bisa untung. Tapi yang dia pikirkan motivasinya, orientasinya itu is not profit only, but creating value. Nah, tugas kita di sini adalah creating value. Nilai apa yang kita mau keluarkan dan kita kembangkan. When we create value, then we will have the result, the byproduct. Ini menjawab nggak?
Probably later to ask that. So how do we define profit? Like partially has been answered by Pak Aris, for example, that probably we can also consider a social profit in this case. So, but I would like to hear whether that's also
Profit is a financial profit.
Financial profit.
Financial profit means surplus. Kalau kita di universitas itu bukan bilangnya profit, but surplus. How much you spend, how much you receive. Mendapat uang dan mendapat income dari SPP, dari biaya semester, kemudian kita bayar gaji-gaji kita semua di sini, bayar fasilitas. Surplusnya itu, nah kita manfaatkan untuk apa surplus itu? Apa dibagi-bagi kepada pemegang saham? Kan tidak ada pemegang saham. Kita reinvest, kita investasikan kembali untuk Ukrida. Nah, sebenarnya pemerintah sudah menjaga ini, bahwa keuntungan atau surplus yang didapat oleh universitas itu tidak boleh dikeluarkan dari universitas. Kita diberi waktu 4 tahun untuk menginvestasikan kembali. Misalnya, tahun ini kita surplus 10 miliar. 10 miliar ini harus kembali sebagai investasi di universitas dalam waktu 4 tahun. Setelah itu kalau misalnya tahun kelima kita belum pakai juga ini 10 miliar, kita akan dikenakan pajak. Karena pemerintah menganggap ini keuntungan yang tidak diinvestasikan kembali, tapi untuk dinikmati. Itu bedanya. Kalau perusahaan kan untung dibagi-bagi kan kepada pemegang saham. Kalau di Ukrida, di universitas, di lembaga pendidikan, di yayasan seperti Ukrida, keuntungan itu harus di reinvest, harus dimasukkan kembali, beli fasilitas, beli rumah sakit. Kalau nggak dari mana uang beli rumah sakit? Beli peralatan. We are not a social institution. Kalau tadi, gimana dengan endowment funds? Yes. Itulah sebabnya kita menciptakan Clement Sulaiman Scholarship Funds. Saya tuh sangat-sangat tergerak ketika saya ada di Harvard. Saya bukannya sekolah di Harvard sih, saya cuma berkunjung ke situ. Saya dijelaskan di situ bahwa 70% mahasiswa di Harvard University itu menerima beasiswa dari Harvard University. 70% menerima beasiswa. Yang 30% ini kenapa nggak terima beasiswa? Karena mereka dikirim oleh negaranya atau dikirim oleh lembaga-lembaga yang dibayarin uang kuliah. Tapi 70% dan mereka itu bukannya dites otaknya, jadi bukannya dites IQ-nya atau aptitude, tidak di ranking yang top-top aja yang dikasih beasiswa, tidak. Harvard menentukan means test. Kalau Anda sudah bisa masuk ke Harvard, artinya aku udah pinter kan. Kalau nggak bisa punya uang untuk bersekolah di Harvard, dikasih uang sama. Dari mana uangnya? Tolong carikan saya Bill Gates yang bisa nyumbang $5 miliar setiap tahun. Kalau Ira bisa dapat, kita tidak perlu lagi kasih uang sekolah untuk mahasiswa. Apakah kita berusaha untuk? Yes. Pengurus berusaha untuk melakukan. Kita mengumpulkan dana endowment fund. Sebenarnya menurut saya Ukrida ini didirikan oleh siapa? Ukrida dan penabur didirikan oleh gereja. Siapa yang punya tanggung jawab paling besar untuk supaya Ukrida ini bisa berdiri dan bisa memberikan pendidikan yang baik? Gereja. Harusnya gereja yang kasih duit buat kita. Tapi gereja kita nggak punya duit juga. Jadi harusnya kan didirikan oleh gereja yang harus tanggung jawab. Nah inilah susahnya. Tapi Ira nggak usah khawatir. Kita semua punya kesempatan atau punya diberikan ya, kesempatan untuk melihat duit yang diterima oleh Ukrida itu yang dikumpulkan sebagai uang-uang yang surplus itu dipakai untuk apa? Kalau itu untuk memperkaya pengurus atau memperkaya rektor dan Pak Aris, ya itu kita bisa kritik. Tetapi kalau itu direinvestasikan untuk membeli fasilitas, direinvestasikan untuk memberi kesejahteraan kepada kita semua dengan lebih baik, itu kita harus buka. Sebab kita bukannya lembaga pemerintah yang dapat uang dari pemerintah, gitu ya.
Ya, saya cuma sedikit ingin menambahkan soal Kristiani, nilai-nilai Kristiani, unggul dan nilai Kristiani. Mungkin ini agak bertanya-tanya, apa sih itu sebetulnya? Ya, tadi saya sudah sampaikan, dasar Kristiani itulah di hukum pertama dan yang kedua, dan dua-duanya memiliki kasih. Kasihilah Tuhan Allahmu, kasihilah sesamamu. Jadi ciri-ciri khas yang paling mencolok dari Kristiani adalah mengasihi. Ya. Jadi ini saya kira tugas dari Pak Denny Boy yang untuk men-generate value. Ya. Jadi lulusannya bukan hanya sekedar intelektual saja yang dimiliki atau kompetensi, tapi memiliki kasih. Hanya tambahan itu saja saya pikir. Karena saya pun dulunya bertanya-tanya sebelum saya cari apa sih sebetulnya yang nilai Kristiani yang cocok. Ya, terima kasih.
Baik Bapak Ibu, kita akan tutup sesi tanya jawab untuk siang hari ini karena waktu juga. Juga karena keterbatasan waktu dari Bapak Oki Wijaya, maka sebagai ucapan rasa terima kasih kami Universitas kepada Pak Oki yang telah menyempatkan waktu untuk hadir dan datang sebagai pembicara di hari ini, kami akan memberikan ucapan terima kasih. Untuk itu kami undang dengan hormat Bapak Rektor, Bapak Dr. Amin, untuk memberikan tanda terima kasih kepada Bapak Oki Wijaya.
Kameramen. Oke.
Terus saya aja, Pak Aris jadi kasih.
Nggak bisa digeser.
Oh, digeser dulu.
lebih waktunya 1 jam. Baik Bapak Ibu, kita lanjutkan acara berikutnya.
Let me tell you a funny story about Euclida. Supposedly this happened here in your beautiful city. There was a person who had just graduated from Harvard University. He had much pride. And he was sitting at one of the bus stops at one of the streets, and there was another person next to him. And the person looked like maybe he was college-age person. So the guy from Harvard looks at him and he says, "Are you a college student?" And the kid goes, "Yes." He goes, "Well, where do you go to school?" He goes, "I go to Euclida University." He goes, "Well, I graduated from Harvard." Kid said, "That's nice." So the guy from Harvard says, "Well, I'll tell you what, let's play a game. I'll ask you a question, and if you don't know the answer, you have to give me 100,000 rupiah. But then you ask me a question, if I don't know the answer, I will give you 1 million rupiah. Do you want to play the game?" "Okay." He goes, "Okay, I'll go first." So he asked the kid from Euclida, he said, "What is ultra-sublapsarianism?" Kid said, "I don't know." Gives him 100,000 rupiah. He's just sitting there. He goes, "Well, now you ask me a question." He goes, "Okay. What had 17 legs when it walked up the hill, but only had 8 legs when it walked back down the hill?" Guy from Harvard, "What kind of a question? What? What? And so he's thinking. He's, "What? I don't know." And he gives him 1 million rupiah. The kid's sitting there. Finally, the guy from Harvard says, "Well, what is it?" "I don't know." Gave him 100,000 rupiah. See, it's much better to be wise than it is to be smart. But if you can come to a place in your education where you are wise and smart, that's even better. Wisdom comes from the Word of God. And in the last question that was asked, I just want to affirm the answer from our rector. That there is nothing more important than this, according to Jesus. Nothing more important than this. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your soul and all of your strength. And the second commandment, second most important in the entire world, is like that. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says something interesting. He says all of the law and the commandments are wrapped up in just these 2 things. Why would he say that? Well, if you look at the 10 commandments, there's 10 commandments in the Old Testament. The first 4 of the commandments are all about love the Lord your God. The next 6 commandments are all about loving your neighbor, what to do, how you interact with your neighbor. And it's very interesting when a rich young ruler came to Jesus and he says, "Good teacher, what must I do to be saved?" Well, any of us would have started sharing the gospel with him, but not Jesus. Jesus says, "Why do you call me good?" You know what the commandments say. And the young ruler says, "Which ones?" And Jesus gives him 5 commandments. All 5 are from the ones where you love your neighbor as yourself. from the second half of the commandments. He gives him 5 out of the 6. He only leaves one of them out. And the rich young ruler says, well, all of these I have done since I was a youth. Remember, Jesus gave him 5 out of the 6. He only left one of them out. And Jesus says, this one thing you lack, go and sell everything you have, give it to the poor, then come and follow me. And it says that he went away sad because he had great wealth. His wealth was more important than his love for God. Remember, Jesus gave him 5 out of the 6 commands. He only left one of them out. Do you know which one he left out? This one. Do not covet. Out of all of the commandments, there's only one of them that we cannot see if it is being adhered to or not. There's only one. There's only one that's internal. It's the heart. It's covetousness. I cannot see if you're being covetousness. You cannot see if I'm being... That's the only one Jesus left down. He says, this one thing you lack, go and sell everything. Because he had a covetousness in his heart. He had wealth in his heart. And here's the one thing I love that goes back to the question that was asked about transformation, is that there is nothing more important than loving God with all of our heart and soul and mind and strength. The second is loving our neighbor. How about this? Loving our students as we love ourselves. And Jesus loves them, and he loves us so much that if there's one part of our heart that is wrong, he will be so kind as to point that out to us. And then we have the opportunity to show if we have true transformation or not. Because in Hebrews we talk about transformation. Be ye transformed. How does that begin? Well, it begins by the renewing of your mind. Transformation is from God. It's a mind renewed by God. And if you can have a mind renewed by God and a mind of wisdom, and you add to that equipping and empowering a young student, there's no telling what that student can do. There's no telling. God can use them in mighty ways, and we have that stewardship. Well, we're going into our afternoon session, and I will not go overtime. Again, I was so mad at myself. I couldn't believe that I did that earlier. I'm sorry. I apologize again. But we're going to have fun this afternoon. This is best practices, focus for lecturers. And so we're going to talk about what, in fact, does it take for you and I to focus in the areas that we need to. Don't you love this picture? This is focus for professors, I think. This is a picture from Harvard Business Review in December 2013. And we always think that the students cannot focus because they're so busy with their phones, but I think sometimes it is us as well, where we lose our focus. This morning I talked about Daniel Goleman's book called Focus, and some of his other books from Emotional Intelligence. Most of what comes out this afternoon are from these 2 books, The Power of Full Engagement and The Power of Habit. Now, if you would like, again, all of the slides that I have here, those are all being made available to you. So the university staff will have them. They will send out an email or something. They'll say, if you want them, email us, we'll give them to you. Also, I've given you a 12-page book summary of The Power of Full Engagement and The Power of Habit of one of Daniel Goleman's books, plus one other resource called The Minute Paper that I will talk about in my lecture this afternoon. All of those are available. They're free to you. I've purchased them from my friend who does the book summaries, and so if you would like those, you certainly can have them. So let's go to the afternoon, and first we're going to start with this. Being a lecturer is not getting any easier, especially if you spell lecturer right like that, because that is spelled incorrectly. So as you can tell, it is getting very hard to be a lecturer today. Half of faculty say their job is more difficult than it was 5 years ago. And that's from the magazine Faculty Focus for university professors. And what they did is this is not just in university, this is also in colleges and 2-year colleges. And then they asked the people, is your job about the same? Or is it getting a little easier, or is it getting more difficult? And over half of the respondents said it's getting more difficult. And part of that reason certainly has to do with some of the new challenges because of technology. And it's harder for them in the classroom, but also to see the attention spans getting so small because of the way that students are using technology. But we are going to remain optimistic. So focus and engagement is a predictor of satisfaction. How well you and I can focus, what we talked about this morning in our attention, how well we can control our emotions, how well we are able to have the cognitive power to bring this into focus, how well we do that is a predictor of satisfaction. The people who can do that better are happier and better people, and they enjoy their jobs more and they enjoy their families more. If you cannot control, if you cannot focus, if your life is a little bit out of control, then people do not have the same levels of satisfaction. So again, this is a wonderful area that each of us that we can work on. So our primary question for this session, how can I stay more focused as a lecturer and a positive contributor to the Ukrida campus? So here's what we're going to do as far as our outcomes, educational outcomes. If I was lecturing in universities in the United States and people were getting continuing education, then you have to say, here are the outcomes, and then did we meet those outcomes at the end of the session? Here's what we want to do in our hour today. Practical ways to improve our focus. Review the research in precision and specificity, and I think this is some of the most overlooked and underused research specifically for lecturers. And you say, well, what does that even mean? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. You'll find it fascinating, just fascinating as I have. And then discover and for the classroom best practices in focus. That's what we want to do. But first, let me tell you about some action research they did at Princeton University. To theology students at Princeton University, a Presbyterian theology program at one of the Ivy League schools in the United States, what they did is they told the students, in 2 hours, we're giving you 2 hours to prepare, and then you must teach a lesson from the New Testament, and we will give you the subject of the lesson. We've got these papers here in our envelopes, and we'll hand it to you, and whatever is inside there, that's what you will be teaching. And then you have 2 hours to prepare, and then you walk to this other place on campus, and we will meet there, and then you will provide your lesson. And here's what they did. To half of the people who received an envelope, it just said, take any lesson that you want from the New Testament, and you can teach on that lesson. To the other half, it said this, teach the lesson of the Good Samaritan. Teach the lesson of the Good Samaritan. Now, you and I will remember the Good Samaritan is when there was a person and he was hurt and he was beside the road, and the first person went by and he said, oh, whoa, whoa, I can't touch him. I don't want to become unclean. So a priest went by, a Levi went by, no, can't touch him. And then the third person went by, and who was that? He was a Samaritan. Remember Samaritans, they were bad people back then. People didn't like them at all. This all came from the parable that Jesus was telling when he said, who is my neighbor? And so the Samaritan comes by, takes the person, takes him to an inn, pays him, says, hey, take care of this guy, here's some extra money, and if I still owe anything, I'll give it to you when I come back. And Jesus says, when he says, who is my neighbor? He says, who was a good neighbor to that guy? So half of the students were given the assignment to teach what that means and how we can do that in today's life. How can we become a good Samaritan? But here's what they did. From the place where they were preparing at the time to the place where the lecture hall was, they put an actor out there. It was somebody who was hurting, who was bent over going, oh, oh, oh. And all of these students who had been studying this lesson had to walk right by the guy on their way to teach about what you should do as a good Samaritan. And so they had a couple of questions that they wanted to do in their action research. On the way to class, number one question, did they stop? Did the students stop and help the person? Second question they had, did it matter what topic they had? With the people who had been studying the Good Samaritan and now they're about to teach others how to be a Good Samaritan, would more of those students stop than the people who were not teaching on that subject? Right now, I think some of you are thinking in your head, I think I will do this lesson with my students. Isn't that a good thing? Did they stop? And did more of them stop, which were going to teach the lesson of the Good Samaritan? Here's the answer. Did it matter if they were teaching the lesson of the Good Samaritan? The answer they discovered was no. It made no difference. People who were teaching that lesson stopped at no greater rate than people who were teaching anything else. What mattered most of all was what kind of time pressure the student felt they were under on their way to class. They had the right information in their mind, but they didn't know how to focus their energy. They had the right information, but they didn't know how to apply it. Because in their minds, they had not controlled their time, and so they would not be able to stop for this person on the way to class. And ultimately, what they came up with in this study is that if we have all of the right information, but our life is out of control and we don't have the focus and the wherewithal to bring ourselves back into control, information by itself is not transformative. Only information, when you have the mental and emotional energy to take that information and to apply it in action research. When I heard this study, I thought about myself. I thought, what would I have done? I don't know if you're familiar with something called projection bias. We learn about this sometimes in business classes. If somebody else does something wrong, we attribute it to them as a person. If I do something wrong, we attribute it to my environment. If somebody else does something wrong, oh, they are not a very good person. If I do something wrong, well, it's really not my fault because the circumstances surrounding it are what caused it. Same thing when something good happens. When someone does something good, oh, well, they should have done something good. They've had good opportunity. When I do something good, it's because I'm a good person. And so it's a psychological phenomenon, and it's projecting something on somebody else. And so I think when I say, what would I do in this situation? I have to be real careful because I think of projection bias. Maybe I will say I would do this, but I think I would stop. But here's what I'd do. I'd say, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I got to go. I'll call you some help. So yeah, I think I would stop, but I don't think I'd stop with care and compassion. Why? Because I had to go teach about care and compassion. My friends, my colleagues, my fellow lecturers, my fellow professors, let us not be the kind of people who have to go teach about something, but we're not willing to allow that same material to transform us. In order for that to happen, what we have to do, we have to focus. And so here are some practical ways to improve our focus. Number one, there's some things that we can do that are preemptive. I talked about this morning, be where your feet are. In the beginning, just stop. You've prepared your lesson. Lord willing, you've prepared well. Hopefully, you've been preparing all of your life or for the last couple of decades through all of your studies. You know most of the information that you're going to teach. But can you stop and focus almost like we did in the breathing exercises? Or can you focus and say, I'm here, it's today, these are my students, and here are the outcomes I want them. Everything depends upon me being able to love them, to care for them, and for them to hear this information in a way that's going to be beneficial and life-changing for them and empowering to the students. Number one, be where your feet are. Number two, multitasking is a lie. Multitasking is a lie. There was an article that came out by that same title, a guy, Clifford Nass, I believe, from Stanford University did this. He did all the research on it. Multitasking is a lie. As a lecturer, you cannot multitask very well. Here's the problem. Most smart people think they can multitask better than most other people. Why? Because, well, if we're smart and we're educated, I can do several things at one time. You can't. You think you can. Oh, I can text, and I can prepare my lesson, and I can have the research here, and I can have a conversation going on WhatsApp. It's okay. I can handle it. No, you can't. It's a lie. Here's what they've discovered. We can do all of those things, and we think that we can go from this one to this one to this one, and it just goes bam, 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 and we don't waste any time in between, but that's not what happens in the brain. In the brain, what happens is that I have been thinking about this. Now I have to take time to stop thinking about that, re-engage with this, and now I start thinking about this. But then my phone goes off for WhatsApp, and I have to stop thinking about this and come over and re-engage in this and now start thinking about this. And in between, the process of the brain to engage and disengage and re-engage and disengage and engage and takes about 35% of the time that you're spent thinking is only engaging and disengaging because you didn't focus on one thing. And so you think that you can multitask. But the smartest people in the world will still spend 35% of their time engaging, disengaging, engaging, disengaging. Now here's the thing. Well, you're probably 35% smarter than the average person out there. So what you did is now you could do it at the same pace as anybody else, even though you were multitasking. But I would say, why? That's not how God created you. Stop doing that. As a lecturer, focus. Stop multitasking, and you're going to have 35% gain right away in your brain power, in your cognitive ability, in your energy, and ability to stay focused and to do something that's going to be helpful for your students. So these are things that you can do even before that we're doing some of the exercises to actually improve our focus. Number one, stop and remember, be where your feet are. Number two, remember that multitasking is a lie. And number three, choose the human moment. Choose the human moment. This also came from Stanford University. It was really interesting. They created an app, and they gave it to students and to professors at Harvard University. This is an app on their phone, and it would contact the students or the professors who had volunteered at random times throughout the day. They had no control over what time it would buzz them, it would call them. And every time it would contact them, it would ask them two questions. Number one, what are you doing right now? And number two, what are you thinking about? Two questions. What are you doing right now? What are you thinking about? So if I asked you that right now, I said, what are you doing right now? 100% of us should have the same answer. We're in a seminar about becoming a better lecturer. Or we're in a seminar about focus. So where are you right now? That's where we are. Now, what are you thinking about right now? If your answer is anything other than learning to be a better lecturer or learning about focus, then we've got an issue. Because our feet could be here, but if our mind is on dinner, if our mind is on a problem at our children's schools, if our mind is on something else, then we're not being as effective as we can. And so the third thing that we can do preemptively is what Harvard Business Review in an article by the same title called Have a Human Moment. For a human moment to happen, two things have to be prerequisites. Two things have to happen. Number one, people's physical presence have to be there. You can't have a human moment over the telephone. You can't have a human moment over texting. You can't even have a human moment over Skype, although it's getting closer. But to have a human moment, two things. Number one, somebody's physical presence. And number two, their emotional and intellectual attention must be focused. When is the last time you just had a wonderful human moment? When you got to sit down across the table from somebody and look them in the eyes and hear what they were saying and they heard what you were saying, and you're going back and forth having a great intellectual conversation and doing battle in the arena of ideas, talking about ideologies, and as you're hearing them and they're hearing you, and you're learning and you're growing. And what happens is we leave those interactions, and then when we talk to our spouse or somebody later, they said, oh, what'd you do? I go, oh, I had the most fascinating conversation at lunch. I met this person, it was really great. We began to, why? Because there was a connection there. It was a human moment. Yet too often we don't take time for those because we're too busy going, zzz, zzz. Preemptively, before you do anything else, you can already gain in your heart, in your soul, and in your ability as a lecturer just by doing these three things. By first, be where your feet are. Second, remember, no multitasking. It's a lie. And third, choose to have a human moment. All three of these, and all three of the resources that I've used today in preparing for these lectures, all three of them say that the same thing, that our focus is directly related to our energy. Daniel Goleman says that, Charles Duhigg says that, Lower and Schwartz, who wrote The Power of Full Engagement, they all agree focus is a mental muscle and it uses energy. Focus is a mental muscle and it uses energy. Quickly, I just want to talk about the book that's in the middle of these three. It's the oldest of the three. I'm going to guess Powerful Engagement is probably 10 or 12 years old now. I think it was one of the biggest sleeper books. Sleeper meaning it was under the radar. Because when I read anything about focus, when I read anything about The Power of Habit, which was a national bestseller, and so many people got into Power of Habit when it came out last year. When I read those books, you know what I think? Oh, all they did is took the research from The Power of Full Engagement and then they updated it. It's sort of like any of you who teach in sociology. And you go back to Erik Erikson, and Erik Erikson came out with this unbelievable theory of sociological and the way that we develop and who we are as human beings and the 8 different stages of development of the human being, starting from birth until all the way to death. And it was the number one theory in the academy for 4 or 5 decades. As a matter of fact, there have been more dissertations written about in sociology about Erik Erikson and his theory than anything else. You know what they do? People say, oh, well, Erik Erikson said this, but it's not really correct. And they pick apart some little teeny part of what he said. He was such a giant in the industry that decades later, they're still trying to disprove his theory because it's such an awesome theory. Well, I think The Power of Full Engagement is like Erik Erikson. It was such great research, and it's so good that everybody else has taken that research and began to develop more as there was new research available. So if after today you decide to only buy one book, I would say buy The Power of Full Engagement for 2 reasons. Number one, it's old, so it's very cheap. You can probably get it on Amazon for 100,000 rupiah, including shipping. I mean, it's very, very cheap. Number two, it is fantastic. It's a great read. But remember, I've already given you a 12-page book summary of it too, and it would be worth your reading. It's just that good. The Power of Full Engagement, I love that book. All of these talk about, Power of Full Engagement was the first one to ever say this. If you want to be at your best performance, you do not manage your time. You manage your energy. Stop managing your time. Start managing your energy and you'll be far more effective. It's really true. And here's what they discovered about how our body works. If I come in very early because I have much to do and I'm going to be preparing some lectures and I'm going to be preparing for my whole semester here at Ukrita. And I'm a lecturer here and I want to have better focus and I want to be a better lecturer. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to work hard all day. So I get in very early one morning. Maybe I come in at 7 in the morning and I get here and I just start working and I work and maybe I take one small break a couple hours later just for a quick banana and something. But I work all day long and I don't go home until 7 at night. So I work for 12 hours in a row because I'm such a good person. I'm so dedicated. And I worked so hard, and that's what I did. I worked 12 hours getting ready for my lecture. I would say you wasted your time based on the research that they've discovered, because our body isn't made to do that. Here's what they discovered, and all of the research in this is found in this book. It's just fascinating, and it will help you, and it will help me as a lecturer. Because if I start working at 7 in the morning, and then I just go and I go straight through to 1 in the afternoon with no breaks. I just worked 6 hours, and I think that I've worked at 100%. I've worked as hard as I can. And to tell the truth, in one way, I have worked at 100%. Let me tell you why. Because what I don't know is my energy started up here. I started with 100% energy. And I'm working as hard as I can, and I'm working, and I'm going on this, and I'm working as hard as I can. Now my energy's down here, but I'm still working as hard as I can. I'm not giving it any less effort, but I'm not as effective because I don't have all the energy that I started with. And so I'm still working, I'm giving it 100% energy, but really I'm down here. And then really I'm down here and I'm still working as hard. And I'm going as fast as I can, I'm doing my best work, I'm staying as focused as I can. But because my energy has gone down, I'm only this much effective as compared to where I was earlier, and pretty soon I get down here. And what happens at the end of the day, have you ever been really tired? And now you just have a simple decision to make. What do you want for dinner? What? What do you want for dinner? Yeah, I don't care, whatever. Why? You don't have the energy left. As your energy is depleted, we make worse decisions. We can't make decisions as well. We can't stay as focused, even though in our mind we're still giving it our very best 100%. But your 100% now, it's like a battery. The battery started fully charged at 100%. Now the battery's down at 40%. I'm still giving it 100% of that 40%. It still feels like 100%, but it's really only 40% because our energy dissipates. And so in this book, here's what they discovered. The best work that we can do usually happens in 60 to 90-minute increments. About 90 minutes is about it for us. So if you come in at 7 in the morning and you work as hard as you can from 7 until 8:30, 90 minutes, no interruptions, no phone, no music, you're just down there working as hard as you can, you're going after it, you're making it happen, you work hard as you can for 90 minutes. You know what you do then? Stop! Stop what you're doing. Because that's all that you can do at that point until your energy really starts to crash. And then they say you have to take at least a 15 to 20 minute break. Take a break, and then what do you do during the break? I check my email. No, you can't check email. It has to be something where your mind has totally disengaged. Maybe read a book that you wanted to read. Maybe go for a walk. Maybe sit in your chair and shoot rubber bands at your bookcase. I don't care what it is, but something that's totally disengaged from what you were doing before, where your brain gets to take a break, your brain gets to rest. Have fun. Do something silly for 15 to 20 minutes. And then you know what you do? You go back at it as hard as you can. You work as hard as you can. You work for the next 90 minutes. You work in 90-minute increments as hard as you can. They start offering some of the research of what they found out. And they did their original research with athletes, which was really amazing. I'll let you see that in the book summary, how they discovered these principles. And when they discovered it with athletes, then they thought, would this work for business executives and educators as well? And they found out that it did. Here's what's so amazing about that. They would have people who've been, well, I'm trying to write a book. And they've been working on this book and working on this book and working on this book for years, and they're just not making the progress, and they've taken time off, they took a sabbatical, and they're still working on their writing, and they can't get the article written, and it's just become such a... And then they said, okay, now they teach them this new methodology. Get up early in the morning, treat your body right as far as your exercise and what you eat and the kind of food you put in. You work as hard as you can for 90 minutes, and then you stop. And you work as hard as you can for 90 minutes, and then you stop. And usually they say just 2 sessions. Sometimes if you're really good, go ahead and do a 3rd session. And so now it's noon. If they started at 6 in the morning, it's noon. They're done for the day. You're not allowed to work on your book anymore. You're done. You only got 3 90-minute sessions, but in those there were no distractions whatsoever. You worked as hard as you can. And people who had been working on their manuscript for 2 years, all of a sudden they finally finished it. It only took them 4 months. Why? Because they were focused. And if we will focus ourselves and manage our energy and not manage our time, you'll see tremendous, tremendous results. This research is available from brain scientists, and it works. I invite you to try this. You can try it tomorrow. You don't have to wait. Well, maybe not tomorrow. I should rest on tomorrow. I'd invite you on Monday to try this. It is tremendous what it will do as far as your productivity and how happy you are at the end of the day. Because our body works really well in about 90 minutes is the maximum that you can do. So focus is a mental muscle, and we need to conserve our energy. Cognitive control enables these executives to pursue cognitive control enables executives to pursue goals despite distractions and setbacks. This is the exact same slide that I showed earlier this morning, but I want you to look at it now. Cognitive control, now thinking about it and working for that 90-minute period, cognitive control enables executives to pursue a goal despite distractions and setbacks, and the same new neural circuitry that allows such single-minded pursuit also helps the unruly emotions. Why? Because you have enough energy to deal with it. Just think about this. Think about temptations. Nobody ever broke their diet early in the morning. I mean, if I decide to go on a new diet, I get up early in the morning, I go in, and I have some grain and some fresh fruit, and I'm going to lose some weight, and I have a diet. And then later in the afternoon, I have something very good for me, and then maybe just one half of a cookie. Okay? And then later at night, I go home, and I'm thinking, man, I want to do well in my diet, so I eat a little less than normal, and then it's late at night, and what do? I eat the rest of the bag of cookies. Why? Because at night you don't have the energy anymore to have the same control. Don't manage your time, manage your energy. All of the temptations that we would be falling to come when we are at low energy points. And if we as professors can learn about focus, this can help us in our lives, and it can help the students in their lives as well. Like any other muscle, this muscle can be strengthened through the right kind of exercise. We talked about this, the primary way to do repetitions, the primary rep. Remember, if I'm doing weights, I do 10 repetitions of this weight and 10 repetitions of the primary rep is every time that you are thinking about one thing, bringing it back to something else. What I thought, when I thought about this, was the verse Philippians 4:8. The verse Philippians 4:8, and it says, hey friends, whatever is right, whatever is lovely, whatever is pure, whatever is excellent, whatever is praiseworthy, think about those things. Think about those things. Those are the types of things that we should be thinking of. But what happens is we go off and we don't do Philippians 8. We start doing other verses, like Judas went and hanged himself. I mean, other things are coming into our mind, other temptations and stuff. But what if we brought it back? What if we kept bringing it back to Philippians 4:8? Philippians 4:8, because the way that we exercise and have more focus in our minds is not by concentrating for a long time. It's when we realize that we're not concentrating, bringing it back to what we're thinking. That's where the exercise happens. Every time you do that, it's like lifting the weight. Every time you bring it back, you're lifting the weight. And then you think about what you're supposed to do for a while, and then all of a sudden your mind is wandering, but you bring it back and you do another repetition. That's where it exercises the brain to help you, is when you keep bringing it back, bringing it back. It's so amazing to me that that's what God had called us to do so long ago. So, in fact, focus is a mental muscle. There are 4 kinds of energy that each one of us are going to need. Physical energy, emotional energy, mental energy, and spiritual energy. In this book, The Power of Full Engagement, they talk about spiritual energy. Isn't that amazing? New York Times #1 bestseller. When they talk about that, they're not talking about Christianity at all. They're talking about something spiritual, though, where we identify with a higher calling or a higher purpose in life. And they said there's a spiritual element to this that they don't necessarily understand, but those people, when they focus that energy, it's the most powerful of all. And they say, we really don't understand this. And I say, I understand it. Read your Bible. We'll talk all about it. When you have aligned yourself with the purposes of God and the Holy Spirit is guiding you, there's something about what's happening in your life there that's not going to be explained by somebody on Wall Street. But we get to experience that as we have fellowship with God. So physical, what's the best thing you can do for physical energy? It's to take 20 to 30 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. But most of us don't do that. It's okay, because Harvard and Columbia went together on a study, and here's what they found. 60 seconds or less of very good aerobic activity, 60 seconds, 1 minute or less of very rigorous activity, followed by full recovery, 100% recovery, where, you're not even tired at all because you've fully recovered, showed profound effects in the people who did it. 60 seconds or less. So, when we talk about physical energy, we should each of us be exercising 3 to 5 times a week and do it, but we don't. But remember, Harvard and Columbia, they went together. If we will do something 60 seconds, full aerobic activity for 60 seconds, and then stop and wait for full recovery. Wait 20 minutes, wait an hour, and then do it again. Only for 60 seconds, people saw incredible benefits in their own life, in their mental acuity, in their cognitive control, and how they felt themselves. You don't believe it? We're going to try it right now. Everybody stand up. Now, because this is new for some of you, that's okay. I have never done this before. I have been to many classes, but I've never led an exercise class before. Today is the day I'm going to do this. I feel so proud of myself, leading an exercise. Are you ready? Here's what we're going to do. I want you to lift your legs as high as you can. Try to bring it up to this height. So go ahead and get out into the aisle. Okay? And we're going to do this, but we're not going to do it for 60 seconds. We're only going to do it for about 30 seconds, but you have to do it at full speed. You're going to get a little bit sweaty. It's okay. So for about 30 seconds, I'm going to say ready, go, and then you just lift your legs to hit your hands. So keep your hands at your waist height. Ready, go. Now lift your legs. Come on, leg lifts. Get them up there as high as you can go. Okay, some of you are going like this. No. Full vigorous activity. Here we go. Look at that. Come on. Here we go. 30 seconds. We're going to do it for 30 seconds. We can do this. Come on, ladies. I know it's hard. Come on. Come on. 30 seconds. Here we go. Okay, guess what happens? If you will do that 4 or 5 or 6 times a day, less than 60 seconds, but you go as hard as you can, go as fast as you can for 60 seconds. Oh, I'm so tired. Okay, now I'll go back and I'll do my work. I'll sit down and I'll start working, and you have to have full recovery, 100% recovery. Not like, okay, I'm still a little, no. Maybe an hour later, 1 hour from right now, you're not going to say, oh, I'm still tired from doing that. No, an hour from now, you'll be fine. 5 minutes from now, maybe you'll still be tired. An hour from now, do it again. 60 seconds. Columbia Medical School is the one who started it. If you can do this for 60 seconds, several times a day, they say, here's what the research says, profound impact on their mental energy, on their physical energy, and how they felt about themselves. That's the physical energy. Number 2, emotional energy. Perhaps no obstacle to full engagement and high performance is so pervasive as emotional energy, specifically in the areas of, excuse me, I'm tired right now. There's a reason I do not lead exercise classes. In all of the energy, what they have found is the thing that drains us the most emotionally is insecurity and low self-esteem. If you're an insecure person or if you have low self-esteem, it drains your energy from you. And so if those are issues that you have, I want to tell you, by God's grace, you can work on them. You can work on them. You don't have to remain somebody who's in depression. You don't have to remain somebody who has low self-esteem. As a matter of fact, what they say, one of the reasons that people are like that is because they are so low energy. It feeds on itself. Think about that. Most people in here are not chronically depressed, but all of us have gone through times of depression. And when you're so depressed and you're hurting about something, it's like, oh, I've got I can't do anything. Why? Oh, I'm just hurting on the inside. It's very depressing. It's hard. What happens? Well, I don't have the energy. Well, why don't you have the energy? Well, one of the reasons you're depressed is because you don't have the energy. And so as you begin to change your energy levels, it helps to lift you out of that. If you talk to any good psychiatrist or any physician, if somebody's in depression, one of the things they tell them, get outside, go for a walk. You don't sit in a dark room all day, because it feeds off of itself. Emotional energy is very important. How are you doing emotionally? How are you doing emotionally? And if emotionally you're a mess, that's going to show up in your energy levels. Remember when I said we start with 100% and then it goes down and goes down and goes down? You can't start with 100% if you're all messed up emotionally. And so if you're dealing with something like being discouraged all the time or insecure, it's going to affect your performance. Here's one of the things that I love. In one of the studies that they did, they had a lady who started a business, and her business was going well, but she was afraid to call clients and ask them for the sales. She was just not really a shy person, but she didn't feel good about herself. She had low self-esteem, and so she wouldn't call people and ask for the sales. And she wouldn't do that because she was scared to do it, and then she would feel bad about herself because she didn't have enough guts to do it, enough courage to do it. And so they had her do something. They started with what time of day was it, and so do you have enough energy to do it, and when are you going to do it? And so they came up with 2 times during the week that would be her time where she would make the sales calls. Here's what she did though. She switched the paradigm in her mind. Success was no longer, did I make a sale or not? That's no longer how she decided, am I a success or am I a failure? You know what success was for her? She measured herself by the courage that she demonstrated in making her weekly calls and not by the responses she received. Did I have the courage to make the calls? If I did, that was a successful week. Did people buy it? Maybe they did, maybe that doesn't matter. But I had the courage. I made my calls that I was supposed to. She changed her mind, what happened in her mind, and she now evaluated herself by how much courage she had, not by whether the calls went well and she sold something. Well, guess what happened? She's all of a sudden started to think, I'm a courageous person. I had enough courage. I got it done. As a matter of fact, she started feeling better about herself. She became a better person. More people wanted to do business with her, and her sales skyrocketed. But it's because she changed her mind and her mental energy. Instead of that being such a drain, it became a boost for her because she could identify herself as, even though I might not have all the skills, I am a courageous person. And that has to do with mental and emotional energy. I just love what they did when they discovered that. Here's what to know about mental energy. The brain represents only 2% of the weight of your body. Okay? Your brain is only 2% of the weight of your entire body. But your brain requires 25% of the oxygen in the body. It's only 2%, but it requires 25% of the oxygen in the body. So the consequences of insufficient mental ability and mental energy will really show up in a hurry. Thinking and focus, they use up a great deal of energy, just 2% of the body's weight, 25% of its oxygen. The consequences of insufficient mental recovery range from increased mistakes of judgment, the execution to lower your creativity, and failure to take reasonable account of the risks. Key mental recovery is to give to the conscious thinking and mind. You have to give yourself an intermittent rest. Here's what happens. Mental energy, it takes up so much of the oxygen in the body. And so when you have mental energy, if you just keep going and keep going and keep going, pretty soon you refuse to make solid decisions. Again, I gave the example, hey, what do you want to do for, I don't care. Why? Because you can't make any more decisions, you're depleted. But also you stop assessing risk correctly, you really start to get yourself in trouble. What do you need to do? You need to give your mind intermittent rest. And then finally, spiritual energy. And the spiritual energy, we have the advantage over that secular institutions will never have, because we can renew ourselves in the Lord. As a matter of fact, we're commanded to do so. So if you look at this diagram now, this is sort of wrapping up that whole idea of the energy on one side or the other. In the old paradigm, we had to manage our time, but now we don't manage our time, we manage our energy. In the old paradigm, we try to avoid stress. In the new paradigm, you seek stress. What do you mean you seek stress? Well, guess what we were doing when we were up here doing this? We were putting stress on our muscles. Our muscles were underused, but now they've been used. Now, if you keep doing that, just pretend I make you keep doing it, and this whole time, instead of sitting down, you've had to do it. Pretty soon you'll be like, your muscles would be so fatigued, you'd be no good to anybody. So what you do is you have to seek stress, you have to seek that engagement, but not too much of it, but you get a good balance of it. The same thing happens mentally. You work as hard as you can, but then you have to have intermittent rest. So in the old paradigm, you avoid stress. Now in the new paradigm, you seek stress. In the old paradigm, life is a marathon. I'm going to get here at 7 in the morning. I'm going to work as hard as I can. I worked all day until 7. No. Life isn't a marathon. Life is a series of sprints. Work as hard as you can, and then take a rest. Hard as you can, take a rest. And what happens is your focus, your mental acuity, your alertness will skyrocket. You will be better professors. You will be better in your subject matter. Your papers will get written. The article that you've been meaning to write for a long time, it will get written. Your tenure track will go faster if you can remain focused. Focused. Plus, life is a lot more fun. And then finally, in the old paradigm, if you're just downtime, you're just wasted. In the new paradigm, downtime is productive. Why? Because you have to give your mind rest. That downtime is there for a reason. I'm resting so that I can get full energy and go back and get at it. So outcome number 2 is review the research in precision and specificity. Review our research in precision and specificity. This is, I think, on page 186 of the Powerful Engagement. It's right in there, 175 to 180, right in there as far as the page numbers. Why would I think about that? Because this part, it doesn't even have its own chapter of the book. But when I read this research, it was so fascinating to me. So why? What happened? Well, here's what happened. They went to a group of students and they told those students, write a report on how you plan to spend your Christmas Eve. Okay? Simple assignment. Students, write a paper, here's when it's due, how do you plan to spend your Christmas Eve? For half of the students, that's all they told them. The other half of the students, it was an A-B split, they had the other half of the students and they said, okay, where is the exact time and the exact place that you are going to be when you write that report? Of the students, the general students, who they just said, write a report on Christmas Eve, 33% of the students turned the paper in on time. Of the students that they took them aside and said, where is the exact time and the exact place you're going to be when you write that report, 75% of those students turned it in. Well, maybe it was just coincidence. They had females who were asked to write when and where they would do a breast self-examination. These were people who were at higher risk of breast cancer. And so they took the high-risk group, and then they took a subset of that high-risk group of people who said, I'm very motivated to do this. And so for half of the ladies in the study, they just said, when and where, they said, you have to do your breast exam. The other half, they made them write it down, exactly when and exactly where will you be when you do your examinations. At the end of the month, they surveyed them. Of the people who said they would do their examinations, 53% did so. Of the people who wrote down exactly when and exactly where they would do it, 98% of the ladies did it. when they were asked to give that kind of precision and specificity. On campus, they were asked for more participation in a fitness program. And so they started to tell the benefits of staying physically fit and what happens mentally, what happens physically, what happens in your mind. And so they told the students, we want you to do this. And so of the students who just received the information and were asked, will you please participate in the physical fitness program, the participation in the program went up from 29% to 39%, just from people who received the information. But then they asked a subset of the students, exactly when and exactly where are you going to be when you participate in this program? What time of day is it? On which days of the week? Where is it going to be exactly when you decide to participate in this? Of that subset, 91% of those students participated in the program versus 39% of the other students. This last one's a little bit harder for me. They wanted to find out what were people like when they were at their absolute lowest that they could be, with absolutely no energy, no self-control. And so to find people who had absolutely no self-control, what they did is they took drug addicts, people who were addicted to drugs, and these were people who were now in a program to get off of the drugs. And one of the things that they had to do in the program is they were going to help them to find a job to re-enter the marketplace as they were coming off the drugs. And so these people who were drug addicts, who were at their very lowest, they're in a program coming off the drugs, they said, you need to write a one-page paper that we can give to somebody to tell them why you want a job with their company. Of the recovering drug addicts that were asked to write the paper, the percent that did it was 0. But they took a subset of the drug addicts and they said, where is the exact time and the exact place that you're going to be when you write that paper? 80% of those drug addicts wrote the paper. 80%. You know why that's so hard for me? Is because I have a little sister who was a drug addict. And she was in and out of prison many times. Selling drugs, getting in trouble. And that was so hard for me to see that in her life. Let me tell you about her today. Today, she loves Jesus Christ more in her little finger than I do in my whole body. She is doing so great. I love her. I am so proud of her. She is fantastic. Oh, she's my hero. I love her. But her body has just been wrecked by drugs. And so now she's no longer on drugs. She's no longer on probation. The only thing she is on a crusade to tell other drug addicts about Jesus. That's all that she does now. And so she's wonderful and I love her. But every time I see a study like this and I think, there's nothing that we could do to help, nothing would work. But they found something that worked. Where's the exact time and the exact place? Here's what they found out in the research. When they ask you, when is the exact time and the exact place you're going to do that, you tell them the exact time and the exact place. Okay, well then, did you do it then? No, you didn't. A lot of people, they did not do it at that exact time and exact place. But what happens is later they remember, oh yeah, last night at 9 o'clock I was supposed to do that, but I forgot. Well, I need to do that now. Because they had a mental trigger going back saying, here is when you have to do something. The people who had no mental trigger, oh yeah, I just need to write that paper, they would never get the energy stored up to do it. Because they wouldn't remember until later in the day, and they didn't have the energy. I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. What do we learn from this study? Precision and specificity, what it does to the brain is it focuses. It makes us focus on something to the point where now we have incentive in our mind. We need to get this done. And that's the beauty of focus. Anytime we can focus and we need to get this done, we will do it. When it's just, oh yeah, we've got something that we need to do pretty soon, it never gets done. And then it gets right up to the deadline, all of a sudden I have to try to do it right at the end. I have to prepare for my lectures right at the end. Your lectures are never going to be very good if you wait to right till the end. Because even as you're preparing them, you think, oh, you know what I should have done? You would have thought of other things, but you don't have the time now because you waited till right at the end. So let me ask you a question. My colleagues, my fellow lecturers, where is the exact time and the exact place that you're going to do that thing that you need to do next? And you force yourself to write it down. When's the exact time and when's the exact place? And guess what? You doing it, the chances are going to go way, way up. That was outcome number 2, and our final outcome for this afternoon, classroom best practices and focus. Number 1 is preparation time. Preparation time. We need to set aside time for preparation. We're not very good at this. We think, I need to get this done, but what you need to do is you need to put it in your calendar and treat it the exact same as if you had a meeting that day with the rector, or a meeting that day with the president of your country, or a meeting with that day of someone that you hold in very high esteem, and it is, I can't do anything else because I have preparation time and I am going to focus. And if it were me, I would schedule 3.5 hours. Why? Because I would have 90 minutes and then a half-hour break and 90 more minutes, and then I would call it done. But I would go no distractions, only focus during that time. And if I can spend 3 hours preparing for a lecture that I've already given, but going back, looking at the research again, making sure it's fresh, going online, finding if there's new research available, figuring out in my mind, what is the best way to get the students to understand this? Because if I do lectures in leadership, I have been lecturing on this for decades. But I don't want to give the same dull lecture I gave last time. I want to go back and I want to review every single lecture, every single point, and say, is this still true? What's the best way to go about it? And then I really want to get after it. And so I want to take those sessions, and I know you have heavy class loads. We all have heavy class loads when we're teaching full time. But if you can take time in the preparation, it will pay off, because when you put aside specific time, precision and specificity, and focus on that time, your lectures are going to be better. And here's one of the reasons why. Because you are going to be more passionate about your subject. Guess what? If the lecturer is passionate about their subjects, the students want to listen. If you are bored by your subjects, what do you think the students are going to do? If you are bored by your subject matter, I have an idea for you. Change departments. Leave. Do something. But don't get up there and study and say, hey, today we're going to look at oh my goodness. If you can't be enthusiastic about it, how can your students be enthusiastic? One of the great leadership guys, he says, there are some things that are just boring in our life, but they don't have to be. He said, let's suppose that we're going over a budget meeting. And all we're going to do is look at the numbers. Most people go, oh. What could be worse than looking at those budget numbers? So here's what he does. He gets his team together, and he says, hey guys, we're going to look at these budget numbers. And a lot of people might think this is really boring stuff. He goes, but let me tell you what, some people don't think so. There's some people who hope that we get this wrong. Number one, our competitors. Our competitors hope that we just kind of go through this and we don't really give it our best shot. They want us to get this wrong. But there are also some people who want to get it right. Do you know who that is? That's our families and the people who believe in this company and the people who started this company. They believe if we can hang in there and get this right and the company grows, our families are going to do better, our kids are going to do better, they're going to be more educated because we took the time that was needed to do it right so we could grow this company. And so I'm asking you to give 1 hour of your time and give it your very best shot, and let's do this together. Can I get that commitment from you? And his team goes, yeah, let's do it. And they get into the numbers and they do it, and all of a sudden it's not boring. This has purpose and it has value because they've done the right amount of preparation time. Number two is the delivery time. Best practices in delivery within the classroom. I want to encourage you that be as creative as you possibly can in the delivery in the classroom. You have in this institution people who can help you with the way that you deliver and help you take digital information and to put it in, there's opportunity that you have. Let me tell you, be as creative as you can. Some of you were in the class that I taught here. I taught a 3-night class last time I was here. And by the end of the class, I've got students up, standing on chairs, doing crazy. I'll tell you what, I'm so glad the rector did not show up. He would have thought, what is going on? He would have seen me. He would come out of him and be silent. He did. Our students were engaged and they knew what they were learning and they knew why it was important, and we tried to figure out the most fun way that we could do it. So one of the things I always want to do is say, hey, do you get this? Do you understand this? Yeah. I don't think you do. You need to teach me. And I make all the students get up to the front of the class, and then I just go and sit in the class and say, okay, teach me. What was that we were learning? And you find out, were they really getting it? Just little things like that. You know what that does? If you can go really hard with students for about 20 or 25 minutes, and then give them a little mental break, and then go hard again for 20 or 20, and give them, it's that same process of not going all the way through, but breaking up the time, doing things like going like this, and then getting back into it, and their brains will remember the information better. And then here's something that has come out. Maybe you already use this. I saw the research. As a matter of fact, I've given you a free copy of the 2-page paper on this. It's in the information that's made available to you. Here's what the best professors are doing now. At the end of the class, they do a minute paper. They do a minute paper. Everybody has an assignment. We have 3 minutes left. Get out a piece of paper. 2 questions. Number 1, what is the most important thing that you learned today? Write that down on the paper. Second question, what is a question in your mind that you still have that you didn't quite understand that you think might be important? So in the last 3 minutes of class, they make every student get out a piece of paper and write down the answer to 2 questions. What's the most important thing you learned today? And then second, what questions do you still have? And they turn in the papers and they leave. And the professor instantly gets feedback. What was the most important thing those students learned? And now you think, what was the most important thing I wanted to teach them today? And then you see their responses. Is that what they got? And if the answer is yes, congratulations. And if the answer is no, you have work to do. But here's what's even better. What questions do they still have? Because you can begin to answer those at the beginning of the next classroom session, and in your lesson plans in the future, you can take that feedback and put it in. It's very easy to do. All it takes is a little bit of extra focus and asking the students to do a minute paper. The research that's on that, again, is in a 2-page white paper that is available to you along with the book summaries and the other things. And then finally, something that's come out more recently, I have never tried this yet. It's called the flipped classroom. Maybe some of you have done this, because it is seen in many different places in the academy today, where normally what happens is we come into the classroom, the students come in, and we do our lecture in the classroom, and then they go home and they do their assignments. Well, now what they're doing is flipping that around. They might do the lecture ahead of time, maybe on a video. They send it all out to all the students. They get the lecture part, they have to do it ahead of time, and then they come to the classroom to do the assignment, and they're all doing it together, interacting with each other. So the homework takes place inside the classroom, and the lecture takes place outside the classroom. Because what happens is we give students good lecture material, but then they get outside the classroom and they have their parties and they have this and they're going to a friend's house, and now it's time to do the assignment. They forget the context for what was good. And so what they're trying to do is flip that around. I have not tried that yet. I don't know if any of you have tried it, but if you will just Google flipped classroom, university, a few words like that, and you can find some papers on that. I thought, you know what, that's something I would probably try. I don't know if I'd do it or not, ultimately, but I'd try it at least one. I'm sure I would, because I always want to find new and creative ways for students to learn. So here's a summary. What we wanted to do is practical ways in this session to improve our focus, and we talked about 4 of those. Review the research in precision and specificity. Again, that all came directly from the book, The Power of Full Engagement. And when you ask people to say, where's the exact time and the exact place, you know what I wish? I wish all of our pastors, all the pastors would learn that. Because as pastors, you've opened the Word of God. Now the people are going to go home and you say, Here's the one application thing I want you to work on this week. And I want everybody in the church to get out a piece of paper and tell me when's the exact time and the exact place you're going to do whatever it is I'm asking. Memorize that one verse, or love your neighbor in a practical way. Or when's the exact... Boy, that would be great. Our churches would be transformed just by that one thing. Precision and specificity in the way that we apply our knowledge of the Word of God to the way we live our lives. And then finally, discover classroom best practices and focus. Again, my name is Rob. I live in Atlanta. I moved there to work for John Maxwell. But my heart, at least a couple of times of the year, is not in Atlanta. It's at Ukrida. I love being here. It's been a great privilege. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, once again, thank you very much, Mr. Rob. Oke, Bapak Ibu, mari kita berikan tepuk tangan sekali lagi Bapak Ibu untuk para pembicara kita. Ya, sangat luar biasa Bapak Ibu pembicara kita hari ini. Apa yang telah kita dapatkan hingga pada sore hari ini, semoga kita boleh sama-sama belajar, bahwa kita boleh semakin fokus dalam pekerjaan kita bisa menyelesaikan tantangan yang ada di depan kita, baik sebagai pendidik, mampu memberikan yang terbaik bagi anak didik kita, bagi sesama, dan seperti kita melakukannya untuk Tuhan kita Yesus Kristus. Dan semuanya itu untuk demi kemajuan Ukrida, kampus kita tercinta.
Sekian liputan kali ini, saya Magdalena Nasri melaporkan dari Ukrida TV.